Take the Time to Train Your Mind. Introduction. In the introduction of Take the Time to Train Your Mind, Andres Ruiz sets the foundation for a transformative journey by highlighting a powerful yet often overlooked truth. Our minds are the most valuable assets we possess, and like any muscle, they require intentional training to grow, strengthen, and perform at their best. Ruiz opens by addressing a common disconnect in modern society: how we're quick to invest in physical fitness, education, or material goals, yet rarely stop to cultivate the one thing that influences every aspect of our lives: our thoughts. He speaks from a place of personal experience, sharing how negative thought patterns, limiting beliefs, and lack of direction once held him back, until he made the conscious decision to rewire his mindset and take ownership of his future. This shift didn't happen overnight. It required daily practice, tools, mentorship, and, most importantly, a willingness to look inward. Ruiz's tone is encouraging and honest, reminding readers that everyone has the capacity for change regardless of their past or present circumstances, as long as they're willing to take consistent, small steps. He introduces the idea that our mental habits, how we talk to ourselves, the beliefs we carry, the fears we avoid, shape our reality more than any external factor, and that by becoming aware of these habits, we can start to shift our lives from the inside out. The introduction also touches on the power of mindset in achieving goals. Whether someone wants to become more confident, start a business, lose weight, or heal from trauma, the journey begins in the mind. Ruiz suggests that success doesn't come from external validation, luck, or raw talent alone. It comes from resilience, belief, and mental clarity. He presents this book as a guide for those who are ready to stop living on autopilot and start living with purpose. Through mental exercises, practical strategies, and empowering stories, readers will learn how to identify and replace self-limiting thoughts, develop empowering routines, and maintain a growth-oriented attitude even in the face of setbacks. What sets Ruiz apart is his focus on accessibility. This isn't a book just for high achievers or spiritual gurus. It's for anyone who feels stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure of their path and wants to take meaningful control of their life. He emphasizes that mental training doesn't require perfection, only persistence. Even 5 or 10 minutes of focused reflection each day can shift your mental state, improve your mood, and help you respond to life more intentionally. Ruiz also introduces the reader to key themes they'll encounter in the chapters ahead, like self-talk, gratitude, vision setting, consistency, and the power of habits. But beyond tools and techniques, the introduction calls readers to believe in something deeper: the idea that each person is born with potential that often lies dormant beneath fear, trauma, or societal expectations, and that with the right mindset, this potential can be unlocked. Ruiz challenges readers to reflect on what's been holding them back, not just externally but internally. Are your thoughts aligned with your goals? Are your beliefs rooted in truth or fear? Are you reacting to life or intentionally shaping it? These are the kinds of questions he wants readers to sit with, not for the sake of judgment but for self-awareness. He gently reminds readers that the mind, left unchecked, will often drift toward negativity and limitation, not because we're broken, but because we're human and shaped by past experiences, cultural programming, and survival instincts. The work of training the mind, then, is the work of taking back control, of becoming the conscious architect of your thoughts, actions, and ultimately your destiny. He also stresses the importance of emotional regulation as part of mental training. Learning to manage stress, anxiety, fear, and anger is not about suppression, but about understanding and rechanneling those emotions in ways that support rather than sabotage our goals. Ruiz promises that the journey won't be easy, but it will be worth it, and that the most powerful changes often happen when no one else is watching, when you choose to show up for yourself, day after day, regardless of what's happening outside. With a combination of neuroscience, personal development principles, and real-world coaching wisdom, the book's introduction serves not just as a welcome, but as a wake-up call. If you want to change your life, you must first change the way you think. It's not a matter of motivation, luck, or even intelligence. It's a matter of mindset. And the good news? Mindset is not fixed. It's trainable. It's malleable. It's within your control. Ruiz closes the introduction by asking the reader to make a choice, not to simply read this book and move on, but to engage with it, to practice what it teaches, and to commit to becoming someone who not only dreams but does. Because when you take the time to train your mind, you're not just improving your thoughts, you're transforming your entire life. Chapter 1. The Power of Your Mind. Andres Ruiz dives deep into the foundational truth that everything we experience, our successes, failures, relationships, and emotions, are shaped first and foremost by the thoughts we allow to dominate our minds, establishing early on that the mind is not only powerful, but the starting point of all transformation. He opens the chapter by inviting readers to consider the unseen influence their thoughts have had on their current reality, pointing out that every action we've ever taken started first as a thought, whether conscious or subconscious, and that by learning to become aware of and direct these thoughts, we gain control over the direction of our lives. Ruiz emphasizes that the mind is constantly at work, generating thousands of thoughts per day, many of which are repetitive and rooted in old programming, beliefs passed down from childhood, shaped by trauma, environment, fear, or the opinions of others. And without conscious intervention, those automatic thoughts can quietly sabotage our progress, feed our insecurities, and keep us locked in patterns that no longer serve us. The power of the mind, he explains, is neutral. It can either be your greatest ally or your greatest enemy depending on how you train it. Much like the way a muscle weakens without use or can be strengthened with exercise, the mind responds to what we feed it. If we constantly dwell on doubt, fear, comparison, and negativity, we strengthen those mental pathways. But if we learn to replace those thoughts with empowerment, clarity, gratitude, and vision, our entire internal state begins to shift, and with it, our external results. Ruiz uses relatable examples to make this concept come alive, asking readers to reflect on moments in their lives when they talked themselves out of an opportunity, or when fear-based thinking led them to settle for less, procrastinate, or avoid something that could have helped them grow. He introduces the concept of self-talk, the ongoing internal dialogue we have with ourselves, and explains how this inner voice becomes a script we unconsciously follow. If our self-talk is rooted in statements like, "I'm not good enough," "I always mess up," or "people like me never succeed," then we begin to live out those narratives not because they're true, but because the mind believes what it's told repeatedly. Ruiz encourages readers to pause and question their thoughts, reminding them that not every thought is truth, and that we have the power to challenge and reframe the stories we've been telling ourselves. He also touches on how the subconscious mind doesn't differentiate between what's real and imagined. It simply accepts what it's given. This is why visualization, affirmations, and repeated mental rehearsal are such powerful tools. When we intentionally think in ways that align with our goals, our subconscious begins to act in harmony with that new reality. He draws from neuroscience to support this, briefly referencing how neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, means that we're never stuck, never too old, never too damaged to grow or change as long as we're willing to put in the work. Ruiz passionately urges the reader to take responsibility for their mental environment, comparing it to a garden. If you don't plant intention and inspiration, weeds of fear, doubt, and distraction will grow by default. He reinforces the idea that we cannot control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we interpret and respond to those events, and that power lies entirely within the mind. In doing so, Ruiz challenges the victim mindset that often creeps in when life feels overwhelming, instead offering the empowering truth that we always have a choice, even if that choice is as small as shifting a single thought. He also makes the point that training the mind is not about toxic positivity or denying hardship. It's about building mental awareness, emotional discipline, and the ability to redirect our focus toward what serves us, rather than what drains us. To bring the point home, he shares stories, both personal and from clients he's coached, of individuals who overcame major challenges not by changing their circumstances first, but by changing their mindset, proving that once your thoughts shift, your emotions follow, your actions change, and your results inevitably transform. Ruiz emphasizes that this work takes time and repetition. The brain doesn't shift overnight, but just like going to the gym, consistent effort leads to lasting results. He encourages readers to start small. Become aware of negative patterns, write them down, replace them with empowering alternatives, and begin each day with a simple practice of gratitude or intention to rewire the mental baseline. Ruiz closes the chapter with a powerful message. The mind, when trained with focus and love, becomes the most effective tool for creating a life of joy, confidence, and purpose. He reminds readers that no one is born mentally strong, we all have to work for it, but the moment you commit to mastering your thoughts is the moment you begin to master your life. The power of your mind, he says, is not some distant philosophy, it is a present and accessible force waiting to be activated, and once you begin to harness it intentionally, you'll see that everything you've been searching for, peace, clarity, motivation, and purpose, was within you all along. Chapter 2, Breaking Through Limiting Beliefs. Andrés Ruiz explores the invisible but deeply powerful mental barriers that hold people back from living their fullest potential, arguing that most of the limitations we face in life are not due to our actual capabilities, but rather due to the beliefs we've accepted as truth about who we are and what we can or cannot do. He begins by defining limiting beliefs as deeply ingrained thought patterns, often unconscious, that dictate our decisions, shape our identity, and restrict our ability to grow. These beliefs are usually formed early in life, rooted in childhood experiences, cultural conditioning, painful memories, or words spoken over us by parents, teachers, or peers. For example, someone who was constantly told as a child that they were not smart enough might grow up avoiding challenges that require critical thinking, not because they lack intelligence, but because they internalized a belief that they are incapable. Ruiz emphasizes that these beliefs become mental filters through which we interpret the world. They color our perceptions, distort our self-image, and even cause us to sabotage opportunities because we feel unworthy of success or happiness. He points out that the most dangerous thing about limiting beliefs is that they often operate quietly in the background. We don't even realize they're there. We think we're just being realistic or protecting ourselves, but in reality, we're living in a mental prison of our own construction. Ruiz encourages readers to take a pause and ask themselves where their self-doubt, hesitation, or repeated frustrations truly stem from. He explains that before any lasting change can happen, one must first identify and confront the beliefs that are keeping them stuck. To do this, he offers a simple yet powerful self-reflection process. Start by writing down an area of life where you feel stuck, then ask yourself, what do I believe about myself in this area? And where did that belief come from? He teaches that questioning our beliefs is the first step to breaking them, because once you challenge a belief, you begin to take away its power. Ruiz makes the case that most limiting beliefs are not based on truth, but on emotion and repetition. The more we repeat a thought, the more our mind begins to accept it as reality. But the good news, he says, is that beliefs can be changed. Just as we learn to believe something negative, we can unlearn it and replace it with something that serves us. He introduces the idea of reprogramming the subconscious mind by consciously choosing new beliefs and reinforcing them through affirmations, visualization, and intentional action. Ruiz shares personal stories and coaching examples of individuals who transformed their lives simply by changing their beliefs. From people who went from insecure to confident, from broke to financially stable, from depressed to hopeful, not because their external situations magically improved, but because they stopped seeing themselves as victims of circumstance and started seeing themselves as powerful creators of their own story. He emphasizes that belief comes before evidence, not the other way around. You have to believe you can change before you see the proof. Waiting for outside validation keeps you stuck. Real transformation happens when you make the internal decision to see yourself differently, act differently, and stay committed even when the old voices of doubt try to pull you back. Ruiz also addresses the emotional aspect of this work, noting that breaking limiting beliefs often brings up fear, guilt, or resistance. This is normal, he explains, because the mind is wired for familiarity, not for growth. It wants to keep you in the comfort zone, even if that zone is full of pain or limitation. He encourages readers to lean into that discomfort with courage and compassion, to remind themselves that fear is a signal of expansion, not a sign to retreat. He talks about the importance of surrounding yourself with people who challenge and uplift your thinking, because beliefs are also influenced by environment, and being around others who believe in possibility helps stretch your own perspective. Ruiz closes the chapter with a strong message of hope, that no matter how long you've held a limiting belief, no matter how deeply rooted it feels, you can change it starting today. The mind is adaptable. You are not your past. And your beliefs are not fixed, they're just thoughts you've repeated over and over. But once you take responsibility for your mental patterns and start feeding your mind new narratives, ones rooted in truth, possibility, and empowerment, you begin to rewrite your identity from the inside out. Ruiz urges readers not to wait for permission to believe in themselves, because no one else can give you the self-worth you must choose to claim. The chapter ends with the empowering truth that breaking through limiting beliefs is not a one-time act, but a daily commitment. It's about becoming the observer of your thoughts, calling out the lies, choosing new truths, and practicing them with intention until they become your new default. In doing so, you open up space for growth, confidence, creativity, and ultimately the freedom to live life on your own terms. Chapter 3: Creating a Vision. Andrés Ruiz emphasizes the transformative power of having a clear, compelling, and emotionally charged vision for your life, explaining that vision is not just about setting goals. It's about giving your life direction, purpose, and intentional focus so that your actions align with who you want to become and what kind of life you want to live. He begins by pointing out that most people wander through life reacting to circumstances rather than consciously creating the path they truly desire, not because they lack potential but because they lack clarity. Ruiz argues that without a vision, we become stuck in cycles of distraction, comparison, or fear, living according to the expectations of others instead of what truly fulfills us. Vision, he says, acts as a mental compass. It gives meaning to the everyday grind, turns obstacles into stepping stones, and fuels the resilience needed to keep moving forward when motivation fades. He walks readers through the process of designing a personal vision by encouraging deep self-reflection and imagination. The first step, Ruiz explains, is giving yourself permission to dream again, to remove the mental filters of realism, or what if it doesn't work? And ask yourself, what do I really want? This question may seem simple, but for many people, it's buried under years of self-doubt, limiting beliefs, or the pressure to conform. Ruiz challenges readers to break through those barriers and visualize a version of their life that excites, empowers, and aligns with their values. He suggests closing your eyes and imagining your ideal day, not just in terms of material success but in terms of how you feel, who you're with, the impact you're making, the environment you're in, and how authentically you're living. According to Ruiz, the clearer you can see your vision, the more your subconscious mind will begin to accept it as a new reality, and once your mind accepts it, your behavior starts to shift in alignment. He stresses that vision should come from the heart, not from ego or comparison. It's not about impressing others, it's about becoming the fullest version of yourself. He encourages readers to write their vision down in the present tense, as if it's already happening, because this activates the mind and helps bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Ruiz explains the science behind this practice, referencing how visualization techniques are used by elite athletes, entrepreneurs, and performers to mentally rehearse success and create neural patterns that prepare the brain for real-world execution. By repeatedly imagining your future self, confident, thriving, purposeful, you're essentially programming your mind to seek out actions, opportunities, and attitudes that match that version of you. However, Ruiz also warns that creating a vision without taking action is just wishful thinking. He introduces the idea of reverse engineering your vision by breaking it down into small, daily steps that move you closer to your goals. He encourages setting short-term milestones and celebrating small wins to build momentum, confidence, and consistency. He also speaks about the emotional side of vision, how it acts as a source of motivation on the hard days, reminding you why you started and why it's worth continuing even when progress is slow. Ruiz doesn't shy away from the internal resistance that can arise when setting a bold vision. He acknowledges that fear, imposter syndrome, and comparison can creep in, whispering doubts like, "Who do you think you are?" Or, "That's not possible for someone like you." But he reminds readers that vision is not about perfection or instant results. It's about commitment and belief. He urges readers to replace those doubts with affirmations that reinforce possibility, worthiness, and progress. To make this process stick, Ruiz recommends creating a daily practice around your vision, such as reading your vision statement aloud, creating a vision board, or journaling about how it feels to live that life. These rituals, he explains, reinforce the vision and keep it fresh in your mind, especially during seasons of struggle or distraction. He also highlights the importance of aligning your environment with your vision, surrounding yourself with people, content, and habits that support your growth, rather than drain your energy or reinforce the old version of you. According to Ruiz, one of the most powerful things about having a vision is that it helps you say no to things that don't serve you. It filters your choices and keeps you from chasing goals that don't align with your truth. He concludes the chapter by reinforcing the idea that your vision doesn't have to be perfect or complete to begin with. It can evolve, shift, and grow as you grow. But what matters most is that you start. Creating a vision is the declaration that you are no longer living by default, but by design. It is a commitment to become more intentional, more self-aware, and more courageous in the pursuit of what truly matters. Ruiz leaves readers with a final empowering thought. You don't need to know how your vision will unfold, you just need to believe that it's possible, stay focused, and take the next step. With time, effort, and belief, the vision you once imagined will become the life you're actually living, because when the mind sees it clearly, the body will move to make it real. Chapter 4: Daily Habits for Mental Strength. Andres Ruiz dives into the practical, everyday tools that empower individuals to cultivate lasting inner strength, reminding readers that mental resilience is not something you're born with, it's something you build, brick by brick, through consistent, intentional actions. He begins by stating that mental strength isn't about being perfect or emotionless, but about developing the discipline to keep going, to keep choosing growth over comfort, and to stay grounded in your vision even when life becomes chaotic. Ruiz emphasizes that it's not the big, dramatic actions that create transformation. It's the small, often overlooked daily habits that compound over time to shape who you become. He introduces the idea that your habits are a reflection of your identity, and that if you want to become mentally strong, you must act like someone who is mentally strong, starting with the way you show up for yourself each day. Ruiz outlines a handful of core practices that, when done consistently, begin to rewire the brain, boost emotional resilience, and create a more empowered mindset. One of the first habits he discusses is morning routine, which he calls a mental warm-up for the day. He encourages readers to start each day with intentional practices such as meditation, journaling, gratitude, breath work, or even a moment of silence, because the way you start your morning sets the emotional tone for the rest of the day. He explains that even 5 minutes of focused intention in the morning can train your mind to be more calm, clear, and centered, especially in a world that constantly pulls your attention in every direction. Another key habit Ruiz shares is gratitude, which he describes not just as a positive thinking exercise, but as a mental strength tool that shifts your focus from what's lacking to what's already working. He notes that when you train your brain to find gratitude even in difficulty, you build emotional endurance and develop the ability to see possibilities in setbacks. Ruiz encourages keeping a gratitude journal and writing down 3 things each morning or night that you're thankful for, no matter how small. He then explores movement and physical wellness as another essential pillar of mental strength, explaining that our bodies and minds are deeply connected, and that taking care of your physical health through regular movement, clean nutrition, hydration, and rest strengthens your ability to stay emotionally and mentally sharp. He urges readers not to underestimate the impact of small acts like stretching, walking, or deep breathing, which all help regulate stress and keep your nervous system balanced. Ruiz also talks about the power of positive self-talk and the habit of being intentional with your internal dialogue. He reminds readers that the way you speak to yourself, especially in moments of struggle, has a huge impact on your mental strength. If your self-talk is full of criticism, shame, and doubt, you chip away at your confidence and ability to act. But when you develop the habit of speaking to yourself with compassion, encouragement, and belief, even when things aren't going well, you begin to cultivate a more resilient and growth-oriented mindset. He introduces the practice of affirmations, short, powerful statements like, "I am capable," "I overcome challenges," or "I am becoming stronger every day," and suggests repeating them daily to begin reprogramming limiting beliefs. Another daily habit he highlights is mental hygiene, the practice of being mindful about what you consume. Just like we brush our teeth and clean our bodies, we need to be just as careful with our thoughts. Ruiz encourages filtering the content you expose yourself to, social media, news, conversations, because what you feed your mind becomes the energy you carry. He invites readers to replace negativity and noise with uplifting books, podcasts, and people who inspire and challenge them to grow. Ruiz also stresses the habit of setting intentions, whether it's for the day, a conversation, or a project. He explains that mental strength isn't just about reacting well, it's about proactively choosing how you want to show up. When you set an intention each day, like staying calm under pressure, focusing on solutions, or being present with loved ones, you train your mind to operate with purpose rather than autopilot. He then discusses the practice of self-reflection as a nightly ritual, recommending that readers take a few minutes at the end of each day to check in with themselves, acknowledge their wins, identify areas of improvement, and remind themselves of their progress. This helps create awareness, accountability, and a deeper connection with your inner world. Ruiz reminds us that mental strength is also about honoring boundaries, learning to say no, protecting your energy, and stepping away from things or people that drain you. He talks about the habit of self-respect, which means consistently choosing yourself, not out of selfishness, but from the recognition that your time, energy, and mental space are valuable and sacred. He emphasizes that building mental strength also means being kind to yourself when you slip up or fall short. It's about showing up again the next day and choosing not to quit. Ruiz shares that habits are not about perfection but about consistency, and that the goal is progress, not performance. He encourages readers to start small and focus on just 1 or 2 of these habits at a time, because trying to change everything at once often leads to burnout and disappointment. Instead, he urges a steady, committed approach, reminding readers that small actions, when done daily, become part of your identity and eventually your lifestyle. He closes the chapter with the empowering message that mental strength isn't something reserved for the elite. It's accessible to everyone who is willing to show up for themselves consistently. With daily habits rooted in intention, self-love, and personal responsibility, you can begin to shape a mindset that carries you through challenges, fuels your growth, and brings you closer to the life you envision. Ruiz ends by saying that your habits are the quiet rituals of your future self. Each day you choose to practice them, you're casting a vote for the person you are becoming. Chapter 5: The Role of Gratitude and Positivity. Andres Ruiz shifts the focus toward the internal mindset that supports emotional wellness and mental resilience, emphasizing that gratitude and positivity are not fluffy, feel-good concepts, but essential tools for building a strong, focused, and fulfilled mind. He begins by addressing the misconceptions around these ideas. How many people think gratitude is something you practice only when life is going well, or that positivity means denying problems or pretending everything is okay? Ruiz dismantles those beliefs by explaining that true gratitude is about recognizing the value and lessons within any experience, even the painful or frustrating ones, and that real positivity is not about ignoring challenges but about choosing an empowering perspective in the face of them. He explains that both gratitude and positivity work as mental filters. They shift your focus away from what's missing or going wrong and toward what's working, what's possible, and what you're capable of. The more you practice this shift, he says, the more your brain becomes wired to notice opportunities, strengths, and blessings, even in the middle of adversity. Ruiz highlights how these mindsets act like emotional muscles. The more you train them, the stronger they get. He explains how our brains are naturally wired for negativity, an evolutionary survival mechanism, but that we now have the power to override that default setting by consciously choosing where we direct our attention. He presents scientific studies that show how gratitude can increase dopamine and serotonin levels, improve sleep, lower stress, and strengthen relationships, making it not just a spiritual principle but a psychological superpower. Ruiz encourages readers to adopt a daily gratitude practice, suggesting simple habits like writing down 3 things you're grateful for every morning, sharing appreciation with someone in your life, or reflecting on moments of joy before going to bed. He emphasizes that it's not about the size of the thing you're grateful for, but the depth of attention you give it, because the more emotionally connected you are to your gratitude, the more powerful its effect. He gives examples of people who found gratitude even in heartbreak, loss, or uncertainty, not because those situations were easy, but because they looked for the hidden gift, the strength gained, the wisdom uncovered, the clarity that arose, and through that perspective transformed their pain into power. Ruiz then explores the importance of positivity as a conscious choice, not a personality trait. He explains that positive people are not lucky or naive. They are disciplined thinkers who choose to look for solutions, speak encouraging words, and expect better outcomes even when the evidence isn't fully there yet. He challenges readers to pay attention to the language they use, both in thought and conversation, because words carry energy and reinforce beliefs. Statements like, "I always mess things up," or "nothing ever works for me" might seem harmless, but repeated over time, they shape your identity and keep you trapped in a negative narrative. He urges readers to flip those scripts, to replace defeatist self-talk with empowering affirmations that speak life into their goals and identity. Ruiz discusses the power of visualization combined with positive emotion, suggesting that when you imagine a successful future and feel the emotions of already being there, confidence, joy, peace, you're not just fantasizing, you're actively training your brain to become that version of you. He emphasizes that positivity isn't about pretending everything is great. It's about choosing hope over despair, action over apathy, and faith over fear. He encourages readers to become aware of their mental diet, asking what kind of media, conversations, and environments they're feeding their mind with each day. If you constantly consume negativity, drama, and fear, your thoughts will reflect that energy. But when you expose yourself to uplifting, empowering content, and surround yourself with people who believe in growth, gratitude, and possibility, you raise your vibration and naturally begin to attract more of what aligns with that energy. Ruiz also touches on the link between gratitude, positivity, and relationships, stating that people who regularly express appreciation and speak with encouragement tend to build stronger, more connected bonds. He encourages readers to make it a habit to compliment others, acknowledge small acts of kindness, and speak with kindness even when it's difficult, because in doing so, you not only strengthen your own mental state but uplift those around you. He acknowledges that staying positive and grateful is not always easy, especially during hard seasons, but that it's during those very times when these practices become most powerful. He shares his own experiences of struggling with doubt, fear, and frustration, and how it was through returning to gratitude, noticing what was still good, what lessons were being learned, and what inner growth was happening, that he found clarity, strength, and renewed faith in the process. Ruiz encourages readers to create gratitude anchors, objects, phrases, or reminders placed in their environment that trigger appreciation throughout the day, like a photo, a mantra on the wall, or a favorite quote. These small cues, he says, help recenter your mind during moments of stress or distraction. As the chapter nears its end, Ruiz reinforces that gratitude and positivity are not destinations but daily decisions, choices we must renew each morning, sometimes each hour, especially when life challenges us the most. He reminds us that even if the external world feels chaotic, we can still cultivate an internal world of peace, purpose and joy by focusing on what's within our control, our mindset. He closes with a powerful message, that when you live with a grateful heart and a positive outlook, you don't just change your experience of life, you change the energy you bring into every room, every conversation, and every opportunity. You become a light not only for yourself but for others. And over time, that light attracts more light, creating a life that reflects the very mindset you've worked to build. One rooted in strength, joy, resilience, and deep, lasting fulfillment. Chapter 6: Overcoming Fear and Doubt. Andres Ruiz takes readers deep into the emotional trenches where fear and self-doubt live, the inner forces that silently sabotage dreams, steal confidence, and keep people stuck in cycles of hesitation, overthinking, and playing small. He begins by acknowledging that fear and doubt are not signs of weakness or failure, but universal human emotions that every person encounters on the path to growth. Ruiz emphasizes that the goal is not to eliminate fear but to learn how to move forward with it, because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in the presence of it. He explains that fear is often rooted in past experiences, limiting beliefs, or imagined future outcomes, and that it thrives in the unknown. It whispers things like, "You're not ready, what if you fail?" or "What will they think of you?" until you begin to believe those thoughts as facts rather than internal noise. Ruiz teaches that in order to overcome fear and doubt, you have to expose them, bring them out of the shadows and look at them clearly. He encourages readers to write down their biggest fears and then ask, is this fear real or is it a story I'm telling myself? Most often, Ruiz says, fear loses its power when you face it directly and realize it's built on assumptions, not truth. He urges readers to replace fear-driven questions like, what if I mess up? With empowering ones like, what if this works out? Or what will I learn even if I fail? This shift in mindset, he explains, helps redirect the brain from avoidance to possibility. Ruiz also introduces the concept of reframing failure, not as a final outcome but as a stepping stone, a necessary part of learning, growing, and becoming resilient. He shares how every successful person has failed repeatedly, not because they were fearless but because they acted anyway. By consistently stepping into discomfort, they train their minds to view fear as a signal for growth, not danger. Ruiz discusses the role of the subconscious mind and how many of our fears come from programming we received as children. Messages that told us we had to be perfect, please others, or avoid standing out. He explains that these internal scripts often become the voice of self-doubt later in life, saying things like, you're not good enough, or you're too late. To combat these thoughts, he encourages readers to identify where those beliefs came from, challenge them, and rewrite them with affirmations and evidence from real life. Ruiz introduces a simple but powerful technique. When a fearful or doubtful thought arises, pause and ask yourself, whose voice is that? Is it mine, or something I inherited from someone else's fear? He stresses that awareness is the first step to transformation. The chapter also explores the connection between fear and the comfort zone. Ruiz explains that we often stay stuck in patterns, environments, or relationships not because they're good for us, but because they're familiar. The brain craves certainty, and stepping into the unknown, even when it leads to something better, can feel threatening. But he reminds us that growth never happens in comfort. The longer you wait for the fear to go away before you act, the longer you stay stuck. Instead, Ruiz offers the strategy of taking small, bold steps. Micro acts of courage that slowly build confidence and retrain the brain to trust your ability to handle discomfort. He compares this process to working out. You don't start with heavy weights, you build strength over time. Similarly, mental strength grows with repeated, courageous action. He also talks about the importance of visualization and mental rehearsal in overcoming fear. By imagining yourself successfully navigating a scary situation, you're preparing your brain and body for it, making it feel less threatening when the time comes to act. Ruiz encourages readers to vividly picture themselves speaking confidently, launching that project, or saying yes to a new opportunity, and to anchor themselves in the emotions of success, calm, capable, empowered. This practice, he explains, sends a powerful message to the subconscious. This is who I am now. He also touches on how fear and doubt can be triggered by comparison. When you look at others and feel like you're falling behind, not measuring up, or lacking something they have. Ruiz reminds readers that comparison is a thief of joy and that everyone's path is different. Instead of comparing, use others as inspiration, proof that it's possible, not as a reason to shrink. He encourages cultivating self-compassion and reminding yourself that you're on your own timeline, and that taking longer doesn't mean you're failing. Ruiz also discusses the importance of community and environment in overcoming fear. Surrounding yourself with people who uplift you, who have faced their own fears, and who support your growth can help dissolve the illusion that you're alone in your struggle. Fear feeds on isolation, but courage multiplies in community. He recommends sharing your fears with a trusted friend, mentor, or coach, not for validation but for connection and perspective. Hearing yourself speak the fear out loud often makes it lose its grip. He also suggests avoiding environments that reinforce your doubt, whether that's negative people, draining content, or situations that consistently make you feel small. Near the end of the chapter, Ruiz gives readers a powerful affirmation: fear is a visitor, not a resident. You don't have to identify with it. You don't have to let it dictate your actions. You can acknowledge it, learn from it, and still move forward. He explains that every time you choose to act despite fear, you prove to yourself that you are more powerful than your doubts. That belief, once reinforced daily, creates unstoppable momentum. Ruiz concludes by saying that the life you want lives on the other side of fear, not in the absence of it, but in your willingness to walk through it. The more you do, the more you expand your identity, your confidence, and your capacity for greatness. Fear will always exist, but so will your courage. And when you choose courage, consistently, even in small ways, you rewrite the story of your life into one of strength, freedom, and possibility. Chapter 7: Staying Consistent. Andrés Ruiz addresses one of the most crucial yet most challenging parts of any personal development journey: maintaining steady, focused effort over time. Even when motivation fades, results are slow and life gets in the way. He opens the chapter by acknowledging that most people don't struggle because they lack ambition or talent, but because they lack consistency, the daily discipline to keep showing up long after the excitement wears off. Ruiz emphasizes that consistency is what separates those who dream from those who actually achieve, and he reframes it not as perfection or rigid routine, but as a form of self-respect and commitment to becoming the person you say you want to be. He explains that the mind, like a muscle, responds to repetition, and that your thoughts, habits, beliefs, and identity are all shaped through consistent patterns, not one-time efforts. He encourages readers to stop chasing overnight change and instead fall in love with the process of daily action, because real transformation happens slowly and quietly, not in bursts of hype, but in the repetition of small, intentional steps. Ruiz reminds us that every action you repeat, whether helpful or harmful, becomes a vote for the type of person you are becoming, and that consistency is simply the practice of casting those votes in the right direction day after day. He highlights that the key to staying consistent is having a clear why, a purpose that keeps pulling you forward when your feelings push you to stop. Without a strong why, habits become chores, and goals lose meaning when life throws its inevitable challenges. He suggests taking time to reconnect with the deeper reason behind your actions, whether it's to feel more confident, provide a better life for your family, break generational patterns, or live in alignment with your highest self. That clarity of purpose, he explains, becomes the internal compass that keeps you on track when everything else tries to pull you off course. Ruiz also stresses the importance of systems over willpower. He explains that willpower is like a battery, it drains quickly, especially when you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed. But systems, routines, structures, accountability, take the pressure off your emotional state and make success more automatic. He encourages readers to create daily rituals that support their goals and to anchor those rituals to existing behaviors. For example, instead of relying on willpower to meditate or exercise, link it to something you already do, like brushing your teeth or making your morning coffee. This technique, called habit stacking, makes new behaviors easier to sustain. Ruiz also explores the mental traps that sabotage consistency, such as all-or-nothing thinking, the idea that if you can't do it perfectly, it's not worth doing at all. He reminds readers that missing one workout, skipping a journaling session, or having a bad day doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're human. The real danger, he says, is in letting that one slip spiral into quitting altogether. Ruiz introduces the idea of the next best choice. The concept that no matter how far off track you feel, you're always one decision away from getting back into alignment. This mindset removes shame and reactivates momentum. He also urges readers to redefine progress, explaining that consistency isn't just about doing the same thing every day, it's about continuing to show up even when the conditions aren't ideal. Sometimes consistency looks like a full, energized routine, and other days it looks like a small step, a quiet commitment, or simply not giving up. Ruiz gives examples of how successful people stay consistent by adjusting their approach, not their goals. He uses athletes, entrepreneurs, and creatives who train, work, or create even on their off days, not because they feel like it, but because it's who they've trained themselves to be. He emphasizes that consistency is not about hype or speed, but about rhythm and sustainability. Ruiz goes on to talk about how your environment plays a massive role in your ability to stay consistent. He encourages readers to audit their surroundings. Is your space set up to support your goals? Are you around people who encourage your discipline or distract you from it? Do you have visual reminders of your vision, your habits, or your identity? He shares how even small tweaks, like keeping your journal by your bed, your workout clothes visible, or your to-do list on your phone's lock screen, can make a huge difference in staying on track. He also discusses the importance of tracking your consistency, explaining that what gets measured gets managed. Whether it's using a habit tracker, journaling wins, or simply reflecting on your growth each week, seeing your effort build over time reinforces your identity and keeps you motivated. Ruiz suggests celebrating small wins and progress milestones, because feeling like you're succeeding fuels the desire to keep going. He reminds readers that consistency isn't always loud or flashy, it's often quiet, even boring. But that's the beauty of it. The results that seem miraculous to others are simply the compound interest of someone showing up consistently when no one was watching. He also shares personal anecdotes of times when he didn't feel like continuing, when fear, fatigue, or setbacks made him question his path, but how staying consistent, even in the smallest ways, allowed him to break through and grow stronger. Near the end of the chapter, Ruiz talks about how consistency builds trust, not just with others but with yourself. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, even a small one, you're reinforcing the belief that you're dependable, capable, and committed. And that self-trust becomes a foundation for confidence, clarity, and momentum. He encourages readers to speak to themselves with encouragement, not criticism, when they falter, and to return to their path with grace and resilience. Ruiz closes by saying that consistency is not about grinding endlessly, it's about choosing yourself, your growth, and your goals over and over again, especially when it's inconvenient. It's about becoming the kind of person who does what needs to be done, even when no one is clapping, even when the results aren't immediate, even when the motivation isn't there, because that's where real strength is built. In the end, he reminds us, success doesn't come from one massive leap, it comes from the 1,000 quiet steps you take, one after another, because you believe in who you're becoming. Conclusion. In the conclusion of Take the Time to Train Your Mind, Andres Ruiz ties together all the powerful lessons shared throughout the book with a heartfelt and motivating reminder that the journey of mastering your mindset is a lifelong process, one that requires patience, self-awareness, and a deep commitment to growth. He reflects on the major themes that have been presented, such as the power of your mind, breaking limiting beliefs, creating a compelling vision, building daily habits for mental strength, practicing gratitude and positivity, overcoming fear and doubt, and staying consistent, not as isolated ideas, but as interconnected pieces of a larger puzzle that, when put together, reveal the truth about your potential. Ruiz emphasizes that every person has within them an extraordinary ability to transform their life, not by changing their circumstances first, but by changing how they think, believe, and behave on a daily basis. He reminds readers that real change starts with the decision to stop living on autopilot and begin consciously choosing your thoughts, your environment, and your responses to life. Ruiz explains that the mind is like fertile soil. Whatever you plant, water, and nurture will grow, whether that's self-doubt or self-belief, fear or courage, chaos or clarity. The choice is always yours. He urges readers to become the architects of their own mindset, building inner environments rooted in faith, focus, and emotional strength. The conclusion highlights that while the strategies in the book are powerful, they only work if applied consistently with intentional effort. Knowing about mindset is not enough. Living it is what brings transformation. Ruiz calls on the reader to take radical ownership of their life, releasing the need to blame the past, other people, or circumstances, and instead stepping fully into personal responsibility. He reiterates that your past does not define you, your patterns do, and those patterns can be changed starting today. He invites readers to reflect on their journey so far, asking them to consider how much they've already grown and how far they've come simply by committing to the inner work. He reminds us that transformation rarely comes from huge leaps, but from the steady, repeated decision to show up for yourself every single day, even when it's hard, even when you feel like giving up, even when no one is watching. Ruiz speaks directly to the reader's inner champion, encouraging them to believe in themselves the way they would believe in a friend or loved one they're rooting for. He affirms that you are not broken, you are not behind, and you are not too late. You are exactly where you need to be to take your next step, and the very fact that you're reading these words proves that something inside you is already shifting. The conclusion touches on the importance of giving yourself grace during this journey. Ruiz emphasizes that you will stumble, feel stuck, and face setbacks. But those moments are not signs of failure, they're signs of being human. What matters is how you respond, Do you let it stop you, or do you rise again stronger and wiser? He encourages readers to replace self-judgment with curiosity, asking, "What can I learn here? How can I grow from this?" instead of shaming themselves into paralysis. He reminds us that self-compassion is not weakness. It's one of the strongest forms of emotional resilience because it gives you permission to keep going even when things aren't perfect. Ruiz also reaffirms that training your mind is not a trend or a one-time fix. It's a lifestyle. Just like physical fitness requires consistent workouts, mental fitness requires regular practices like mindfulness, gratitude, journaling, affirmations, goal setting, and surrounding yourself with uplifting influences. He encourages readers to create a lifestyle that supports their highest self, not one based on hustle or perfection, but on intention, clarity, and alignment. The conclusion challenges readers to dream bigger, not just about what they can do, but about who they can become when they commit to living with purpose, courage, and discipline. Ruiz asks, what kind of legacy do you want to leave? What kind of energy do you want to bring into every room? Who do you want to be when no one is watching? These questions are not meant to pressure, but to inspire, to light a fire in the heart of the reader that reminds them they are capable of far more than they think. He explains that the ripple effects of training your mind extend far beyond personal achievement. When you become mentally strong, emotionally intelligent, and spiritually grounded, you influence your relationships, your community, and the world in powerful, positive ways. Your courage gives others permission to be courageous. Your discipline becomes an example for others to follow. Your light becomes a source of hope for those still lost in darkness. Ruiz closes the book by returning to the title itself, Take the Time to Train Your Mind, and he emphasizes the word time. Because training your mind is not something you do when it's convenient. It's something you make time for because you understand that your mindset controls your outcomes, your peace, your happiness, and ultimately your entire life. He urges readers not to wait for the perfect moment, the right mood, or more external validation. The time is now. The power is already within you. And the life you want is not found in some far-off future. It's built, moment by moment, through the thoughts you choose, the habits you practice, and the beliefs you nurture. In his final words, Ruiz thanks the reader for taking this journey with him and reminds them that while the book may be ending, their story is just beginning. He offers a heartfelt invitation to continue walking the path of growth, not alone, but supported by everything they've learned, every inner breakthrough they've experienced, and the deep knowing that they are already becoming the version of themselves they were always meant to be.